Here we have a situation where they're doing the absolute minimum to try to claim this as a victory. It's no victory. They're kicking the can down the road to the U.S. Senate.
He's been a Fox News political pundit, voicing his opinion for years, but in the end, it's still all about the facts.
I am someone who is absorbing other people's thoughts, opinions, reported facts, and trying to make sense of them.
Maybe that's because his background in journalism was truly about trying to help people.
I want to know why certain people get their trash picked up and why others don't. And I want to tell that story.
He learned the hard way that voicing an opinion in such a divided time, that can come with serious consequences.
You know, so here I am 13 years later, and I still feel it, man. So when someone would say to me, oh, you know what, you're the bigot, I was like, wow.
Author, journalist Juan Williams, today on The Pulse.
We know he's wrong. I think he knows he's wrong. He told Bob Woodward he's wrong. I think people should pay attention.
I don't get a lot of opportunities to talk to people whose careers I've looked at, whose careers I hopefully kind of patterned myself after. He was doing a lot of things when I was in talk radio. I remember back years, I spoke with Juan Williams when he had a book coming out and I was producing at a talk radio station. So it is my pleasure to have him with us.
My pleasure. I tell you, my biggest title is being guest on The Pulse with Bill Anderson.
I'll take it. I'll take it. When I first became familiar with your work, I was actually working in talk radio. Okay. I believe at that point you were writing, you had books, you were doing NPR stuff. But I was kind of looking at you going, like maybe I could do that. Like maybe there's a path for me. So catch up people who may not be as familiar as kind of your background, the things you've accomplished and getting to today.
You're in Philadelphia, and I started my journalism career as a professional journalist in Philadelphia, what was then the Evening Bulletin, which was the biggest paper in Philadelphia at the time. And I was going to college just outside Philly at Haverford College, and got an internship there during college, the summer after my freshman year. And then they kept hiring me even during the school year. And I ended up things like covering Mayor Rizzo in City Hall. Wow. And being there for some, tremendous events. I mean, it was, to me, awesome. And I got internships at the Inquirer, the morning paper that still exists, right?
Yeah.
And then also an offer for an internship at the Washington Post. And the Washington Post had just gone through Watergate. I thought, well, if I'm going to be out of a job in 3 months, a young black man, I'd rather have a big name like the Washington Post on my resume so I could get a job somewhere. So I came to Washington, and that job lasted more than 20 years. And that led to my first book, which is called Eyes on the Prize, America's Civil Rights Years. And there's a PBS TV special that was made in conjunction with that project and got a lot of attention. And in many ways, that project then led to my second book, which was a biography of Thurgood Marshall, which is 25 years old this year, and a book about being Muslim, because I got fired by NPR when I said, oh my gosh, this was after 9/11. I get scared if when I was in the airport right after 9/11 and see people dressed in Muslim garb. So people say, oh, that's a bigoted statement that you just made, especially because I was making it on Fox and people have strong feelings. And so all of a sudden I got fired by NPR. So that's all part of who I am.
It sounds like you always embraced and loved kind of the work and the, in quotes, capital J journalism.
Today, when I'm talking to classrooms filled with young people who are looking at journalism, oftentimes, they want to be the anchor. They want to be the big paycheck, right? They say, oh, who gets their face and fame from, it's like you're a celebrity journalist. And, when I got into it, my feeling was, as a kid in Brooklyn, I want to know why certain people get their trash picked up and why others don't. And I want to tell that story. I want to tell the story about why when the cops show up in my neighborhood, it's like, we're not the citizens, but we're the suspects. But I wanted to help people understand power and who had power and how power was being exercised. To me, that was the thrill. That was the ego's gratification in doing journalism. But I still think if I can tell people, if Bill can tell people how the world works and give them, you know, their family, their friends, their community a better chance of success, I think that's the biggest payoff of all.
But I remember, I guess I'm old enough to remember the whole NPR situation and how it was interesting, it was startling that the person who had been championing these causes and was speaking out, all of a sudden, because of one comment, was being called the bigot, was
Right.
being called what was that like? Even then, I wanted to ask, like, wow, it's quick. Interesting how quick, you know, the kind of definition can change of you.
Well, you know what was hurtful, and I say that with some emotion. It rises up in me as I'm speaking to you, Bill. It's a little bit. It was baffling to me, but I say painful, and I say that's why I'm slowing down in my response, because I just want to convey that even these years later. So that happened in like 2010, and you know, so here I am 13 years later, and I still feel it, man, because all through my life and everything from where I live to where I work and worship and, you know, and kind of the fruit of my mind has been about being part of a larger effort to be clear with people about equality and opportunity and power and how power works. And most often in my writings about civil rights, how power works against people who are minorities, racial minorities and ethnic minorities in our society, in our world. And so when someone would say to me, oh, you know what, you're the bigot, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much like, you know, taking an eraser to my sense of self and my identity, and to the way that I saw myself and trying to speak truth to power about race and racism and bigotry in American life.
Coming up next, more on the personal impact of the NPR controversy.
I look up, man, there's my face and, you know, bigot. I'm like, what is going on here? How can this be me, right?